everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I find out how terrible it is to go to English class. Actually, I don't need to find that out. I lived it. And I'm coming to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Terrifying Thursday. It is TEDx Day, and I am here with a TEDx. So I guess that kind of fits in. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all having a good week. Yes, today we're going to take a look at something that is near and dear to my heart as an official English major, and that is the problem with English class. I saw this one, and I just couldn't help myself. I don't know if has to do with anything of my usual fare per se, but I decided to indulge because of the title and my own history. Just a warning ahead of time, the speaker, at least from the image I saw, looks awfully young, and I think he is in his early 20s, but he is a college graduate. This is not a TEDx youth, even though it might look otherwise, just as a forewarning. But before we get into all of that, who is here to join me on this expedition into literary problem? That would be Matt Barnes, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. The Gay Rascal, hello. Charms 2, hello. Mr. Tickletrunk, hello. John Miller, hello. And then I gotta roll down it. Mike R, hello. Ethan Robbins, hello. Arg, hello. Raziel, hello. Who else? Oh, and then chat jumped because of course it did. There we go. That's where everybody showed up. Zalba, hello. Dina B, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. Dr. Keeve, hello. Birgid, Brigid, Bergid, Brygard, hello. Drew W, hello. Deco, hello. Corey Suzuki, hello. Check Your Logic, hello. Robert Pincus, hello. Let's see. John Miller, hello. Megan Ring, hello. Debate Fly, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Professor Chaos, hello. Fun Time Bats, hello. Ost San, hello. Pink Owl, the Driving Ape Man, thank you so much for the smiley, happy Dogcat Fox. Are you smiley and happy today, Dogcat Fox? Wowie, wow, wow. Yes, he's doing pretty good. He's doing pretty good. It's sunny out today, which is a rarity. Let's see. Frosted Glass, hello. Absolutely Degenerate, hello. Colleen Bernier, hello. Oh, sorry. Senior Staff Reporter and Chief Florida Correspondent, Colleen Bernier. Jago Dragon, hello. Robert Gruber, hello. Lucotorix, hello. Lucotorix? Lucotorix. Let's see. And Tech Alpaca, hello. And boy, oh boy, so many people. Sturmadler, hello. Darren Thompson, hello. I hope I got all my hellos. If I missed you, I apologize. Hopefully I'll see you in the comments at the end or otherwise. But let's get into it. Today's bingo card, links to which you will find in the description, is B. B as in Beatrix Potter from the poll on Twitter. If you would like to join in on voting for the bingo card for the next TED Excellence, be sure to follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description. Do I sound professional yet? I don't know. Either way, this one clocks in at actually relatively short. 9 minutes, 19 seconds. So our speaker has less than 10 minutes to tell me what the problem is with English class. Now, as I've repeated several times over the course of the last 4 years, I have a degree in English. I went through a college English regimen, let's say, both in community college and then taking it on to a 4-year college. I went through literature class after literature class, after creative writing class, after creative writing class. I've been through the gamut with some good and some bad teachers. Some mediocre teachers, some teachers full of themselves, some teachers who were barely there. And that doesn't even add in all of my experience throughout, high school and everything else. But presumably our speaker's talking about college level, maybe. But we'll find out. You and me together. And so with that, all being said, I'll start out with a couple of seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear this, and then we will proceed.
As an undergraduate English major.
As an undergraduate English major. Okay, you guys hear all that? As an undergraduate English major. Let's see. Good, says Ethan Robbins. It's rather ambiguous. Yes, says Attack Alpaca. Sounds good, says Dr. Keefe. Okay, good. I just wasn't sure there what you guys were saying or what you were responding to. But all right. So as an undergraduate English major.
A question I often like to ask people is if they enjoyed their high school English class.
Well, I mean, I had several high school English classes, but I guess it depends on which one you're talking about. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I guess I enjoyed it to the extent that I did well at it. I mean, writing and language was always my strong suit. Math, not so much. So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't all that big on book reports. Let me think, the English class. Actually, the last book report I remember doing, it was The Sum of All Fears. Tom Clancy, The Sum of All Fears. And I remember specifically, I got up there and I talked about how reading that book and the details that Clancy put into that, and most especially the levers and mechanisms of politics, at least in the fictional world as he saw it, gave me a new sort of sense of how the world worked. Not like, Tom Clancy knew how the world worked, but just the intricacies and the personality conflicts and, the movement of nations and things like that. I hadn't really looked at the world in that way until after I read that book. That's just a complete, anecdote that has nothing to do with anything. But anyway, Drew W., thank you so much. It's opening day for baseball. Make it quick. Okay, well, okay. Drew W. says, go. Okay.
When I asked people this question, I kept hearing the same conclusions again and again.
Okay.
They hated it.
Uh-huh.
And why did they hate it? They hated it because they often found the books they were reading to be uninteresting or they didn't understand them, particularly because they weren't applicable, weren't written in modern English, or were no longer relevant to people living in the 21st century.
Thank you, John Miller. I always found English to be a lawyer's paradise, loopholes everywhere. Depends on how you apply it, I suppose. Okay, so I'm assuming he's talking about reading things like Shakespeare or Moby Dick or, I don't know, The Scarlet Letter or something, or I don't know. I'm assuming he's talking about like classical literature. Yeah, classical literature can be very dry, but looking at classical literature gives you an understanding of the foundations of modern literature. And it also gives you a history lesson. It gives you a sense of the evolution of things. And sure, not everybody finds Moby Dick to be that fun to read. I didn't really. And tastes have changed over time. But that's what you're learning about. You're learning about how things have evolved. Because you can read modern books all you want. And truth be told, most modern books are garbage. But okay, yeah, people don't like to slog through the classics. Fine. They're not relevant to today. Okay, well, then I guess just toss out the Bible?
Outside of those reasons, many of the people I talked to simply thought a lot of the books they were reading were dull and boring.
Well, there's a lot of people out there that didn't. Because what happens in high school? Well, you start to find out where your interests and your strengths lie. I didn't mind reading old books so much. I liked expanding my vocabulary, if nothing else. And I got a kick out of being able to decipher Shakespeare as it went, using context clues and everything. Even though I didn't understand necessarily all the syntax or the words sometimes, being able to still follow the story in the absence of having a, 17th century or 16th century mindset was kind of fun for me. But then maybe I'm a rare breed, and that's fine. But anyway, thank you, Gay Rascal. I'm wound up tighter than the stretch pants on a fat studies professor at a feminist bake sale. Okay. Well, just calm down. Everything will be fine.
And you know what?
What?
As someone who really enjoys studying English and has a deep love of literature, including many of the so-called classics.
So-called classics? I mean, it depends on how you quantify classic. Like classic as in quality, that's kind of subjective. Classic as in the era or the stature with which they are placed, I don't know if it's so called, but okay.
I agree. I found that many of the books I was reading in class were no longer applicable or relevant to my life, and a lot of them were just dull and boring.
That is not an argument for retracting books from a classroom or retracting lessons. Trigonometry is not and has never been relevant to my life, but I had to learn some of it. Having things thrown at you, whether they become relevant to you in real life or not, is not the point. It's a matter of trying to find your interests, trying to find your strengths, exposing you to a whole bunch of different subjects, especially in high school, to get you ready for what you may or may not decide to pursue in college. But if the standard is going to be, is this going to be relevant to me in the rest of my life? Well, first off, you can't know that at the time. And otherwise, okay. So the problem is, in this introduction, the books classically, no pun intended, used in English class, no pun intended, are irrelevant, obsolete, dry, and boring. All right, well, what do you suggest they be replaced with?
Along with that, many of the books I was reading in class were written well before I was alive, with most of them being written in the 18th or 19th century.
So what?
That means most of these books were written to be relevant for my great, 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 great grandparents.
Story structure, character development. They are still relevant. They're not somehow only written for people from that time. The stories in Shakespeare, for example, are timeless in a lot of ways. I mean, you want to see like how Shakespeare can still come out cool and interesting in the modern day. Go find the movie Titus with Anthony Hopkins. Okay, that interpretation of Shakespeare always was amazing, just visually. I mean, Julie Taymor, for everything else, did a great job visually in that thing. Romeo and Juliet. These are, a tale as old as time, to steal a phrase. They're not irrelevant. They weren't written for the time. At least those books that successfully transcend the ages, they do so for a reason. Because there is something at the core of those stories. There's something at the core of those books that rings true for human beings, regardless of the era. So if you're going to say, oh, this book was written before I was born, therefore it is irrelevant, yeah, that's your choice, say for you going to school and being forced to read these things. But I think you are greatly limiting the possibilities of your own imagination and, well, just knowledge.
Not me. Most of the books that you and I read in our English.
Okay, that was a weird jump cut. But just as a note, I did not edit the content of this, save for cutting off the front and the end of it because of music cues that I don't know if they're copyrighted or not. So if it jumps again like that or cuts like that, that's not me. Thank you, The Gay Rascal. Go tell a feminist to get rid of Virginia Woolf. Yeah. Tell me there aren't some foundational books, some classic books like Treasure Island. It was written for people back then, and it doesn't have anything to do with me now. Hell with it. Let's go burn it. I'm not saying he's saying burn books. I'm just saying, well, come on.
Parents, not me.
Yeah.
Most of the books that you and I read in our English classes are not books I think we should be teaching to students or recommending to readers inside or outside the classroom.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, not teaching them in the classroom, I guess. Not recommending them inside or outside the classroom? You just want to do away with them completely? Just like hide them in the back room and lock them away? Like, what?
Particularly at ages where people are getting into true literature, like middle school and high school age students.
Okay. No. Okay, I'm already disagreeing with them, but let's move on to the bingo card real quick because I have been neglecting it. Let's see. Anecdote that probably never happened. Not yet. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No. Systemic institutional? No. Weightless example? Not yet. Word salad? Not yet. Leaves out vital context? Not yet. Collectivizes own demographic? No. White supremacy? No. A list? Did he give us a list yet? No, he just talks about the books. Well, I mean, he gave a list as to the elements that made them irrelevant to him or whatever. You know, they couldn't be using language that was outdated and so on. Okay, so circling a list and consequently also circling free space. So let me get that on the board. Privilege, no. Equity, no. Plays victim. Kinda. You know, he was subjected to books that don't matter to him and everything. I'll sit on that for the moment. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, no. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. Feminism, no. Mind reading assumes motives. He is assuming the minds and motives of other students in his age bracket. These things don't matter to us. They shouldn't be talked about. So I'm circling that one. Diversity and inclusion, no. Marginalization, no. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason, no. Childhood or family anecdote, he talked about his time in school. High school is kind of childhood. I'll still give it that. Contradicts own point or argument, not yet. Benevolent condescension, no. Microaggressions, unconscious bias, no. So far on the board, we have a list, free space, mind reading assumes motives, and childhood or family anecdote. Let's continue.
I've completed 12 English classes as an undergrad. Other than my undergraduate thesis, I'm completely done with all the English classes needed for my degree. With that being said, that means I've sat in English class in the last 3 years for nearly 500 hours.
Oh my God. That
doesn't include all the thousands of hours I've spent outside of class, reading, writing, doing research, and the hundreds of other hours I've spent at every other level of education.
Well, welcome to pursuing a college degree. You chose your path, so you got to walk it. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. This is what happens when you only see through the eyes of common enemies and no longer accept the idea of a drumroll common human experience. Yeah. You want to see the basics. I mean, aside from reading Joseph Campbell and The Hero's Journey and things like that, read Shakespeare. You will find the foundations of every major sort of story to be told, character to be created, and so on. And I tell you what, just by trying to decipher the language, even if you don't understand everything that's going on, you will expand your vocabulary. And I said this before, using context clues and reading those books, reading those plays. If nothing else, you'll expand your mind. You know, because if you want to see the evolution of human communication and storytelling, either read the letters from or, cheat a little bit and watch the Civil War documentary of Ken Burns, wherein, as I was saying, the letters from the Civil War, as those are recited in the documentary, and you think back that this is how people communicated to each other at one time, and you hear just the abject poetry of the English language, and then compare it to how we communicate with each other today in tweets and emails and onward, you'll see that we're losing something over time. Looking back to the past, especially the classics, especially how we used to communicate with each other back in the olden days before TV, before everything became so much shorthand with visual mediums and onward, you can see there was an art form there, and there's something still to be learned from it. Our speaker's suggestion that we just kind of toss it because it's no longer relevant, that would be doing a disservice, I think. Thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. All right.
Out of all those hours I've spent reading and studying English, there's only been one novel and a handful of excerpts I've read for class that were written within my lifetime.
That seems to be your big thing. Are you like the quantum leap of English majors? Are you the Sam Beckett? Everything must occur within your lifespan?
Now, is it really the case that there's only been one novel and a handful of excerpts written within my lifetime that were worth reading and studying?
Well, admittedly, that is up to the teacher to set the curriculum. So if you're going to become an English teacher, if you're going to leverage your degree at some point to becoming an English teacher, then you can set the curriculum. I mean, I'm sure there are, boundaries within which you have to operate, but okay, you had a problem with the books you were being taught. You didn't find any value in them at all? Ever?
Absolutely not.
Uh-huh.
If anything, we're probably in the greatest era of writing in all of human history.
Horse hockey. Horse hockey.
There's never been greater access to English education or greater access to publication ever before in history.
Yes, but you want to limit people's access to those things. You want to say, oh, if it occurs before the 20th century, if it was written before my lifetime, or the 21st century, probably in our speaker's case, oh, then it doesn't matter. You don't get to have access to everything if you're saying we need to toss out a lot of things.
The number of authors being published and the number of books being published annually has only increased as time's gone on.
Quantity does not equate to quality.
That, along with the multitude of services that allow people to rate and share books they enjoy, such as New York Times bestsellers,
which are paid for most of the time and don't actually reflect popularity so much as spending on book copies or other influencing, which our speaker is apparently unaware of.
And NPR book reviews.
Yeah, NPR, a totally unbiased source for literature recommendations.
And Goodreads, which is basically Facebook for books.
Oh, now there's an endorsement. Facebook for books. Really? Okay, our speaker is definitely a child of his era.
There are multiple avenues for people to weed out the bad books and find 21st century gems.
All subjective, and also doesn't invalidate the classics.
Now, if we have a seemingly endless amount of modern books to choose from, the capacity to figure out which ones are good and which ones are bad without actually having to read each book ourselves.
Yeah, why think for myself when I have somebody else do it for me? Here's a list of books that have stood the test of time in interest and inspiration, in accolades and so on. Are you required to like Moby Dick? No. You're not required to like it. Good and bad. Oh yeah, I'll just rely on Goodreads. I'll rely on the Facebook of books to tell me what's good or bad before I read it myself, because why come up with my own opinion? Are you kidding me? Thank you, Professor Chaos. This guy is another arrogant millennial who has gotten some bit of education and now thinks he's an expert and our better. What hubris. Yeah, that's the sense I'm getting, is that he suddenly knows the world and everyone in it, and it's all, he's got it all figured out. And credit where credit is due, or maybe more empathy where empathy is due. A lot of kids, and he's still a kid at this point. I'll sound like an old man in saying so. Think that way. They think they've got it figured out. They think they've got it won over on the old farts out there. This is not new. It is not unique to the millennials and onward. But I'm only speaking of our speaker here, and he definitely falls into that category. Thank you, Megan Ring. I was sure he was going to suggest that old books were written primarily about white men and Western culture and therefore needed to go. This is somehow worse. Yeah, like nothing written before my timeline should be taught to me. We should keep moving the window of quote unquote relevant books onward and just forget the past. Thank you again, Drew W. Is this what I sound like talking to people who don't watch sports? And do you think Shakespeare compares to 50 Shades of Grey or White Fragility? Oh, no. Shakespeare in no way compares to 50 Shades of Grey or White Fragility. Not even close.
And the opportunity to share these books with others.
What books? I hope you give me a list of the books that you think should supplant the classics. And there are classes out there that talk about modern literature. I took a modern literature class. I took a classic literature class. I took a Greek myth class that had, the Odyssey and stuff in it and all that. You can have a class that focuses in on modern literature. Those classes exist. If they didn't exist at your college, well, I don't know what to tell you. So his argument is not necessarily invalid in the sense that there should be the opportunity to read books from different eras, sure. But show me a decent college or English department that doesn't have something like that available, and I would recommend they at least offer the class. It's up to the student to take it or not, but anyway.
Why shouldn't we do it? Why aren't we currently doing it?
Who's we? I took a modern literature class in college. I read books from the 20th century. It's a 20th century literature. Okay. And yes, that stuff can come from the 1900s. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. Read the Great Gatsby. Oh, no. Oh, that's too old. That's too irrelevant. Well, whatever. They exist. You do not know everything, strangely enough.
On the other hand, am I saying that we should eliminate all old authors, that there are no good old authors that are worth reading? Absolutely not.
You contradicts own point or argument. He said they should not be recommended inside or outside of the classroom. No. You don't get to make that move backwards without a penalty, and circling that on the board is your penalty.
Of course, there are plenty of great pieces of classic literature that are excellent and certainly worth reading and teaching.
No. I can't circle it twice, but you just told us that we need to have a cutoff point, that the books taught in English class have to be within the lifetime of the students in the class. And now you're saying, oh, no, but we still teach the classics. No, sorry. You lost it. You lost it.
However, by and large,
I always think of Wall-E when I hear that.
Most of the pieces we're reading in class are not those pieces. Those good pieces are few and far between in class.
Such as, I need an example. What are you talking about? What's a good piece of literature? What is a bad piece of literature that you were taught or, compelled to read and analyze?
And those good pieces we read in class of classic literature should be considered the exception.
Such as?
Not the rule.
They should be considered the exception. What? All right. How do you assess good or bad for everyone in the class? You tell me. I've already circled mind reading, but I'm about to circle benevolent condescension if you're going to start telling people what they should or should not think is good or bad.
Now, I know every English teacher out there is saying, well, Spencer, what about having a unified literary canon? Or what about children learning vocabulary words that are used more often in older texts that we don't currently find in newer texts?
I'm not even an English teacher. And I just made that argument because it's not an invalid argument.
Or whatever other reason they come up with that we should be teaching older texts instead of newer texts.
Whatever reason they come up with, like they're just pulling them out of their ass? Are you saying that none of those arguments have any utility whatsoever? That they're all just nonsense? Okay, I'm circling benevolent condescension because our speaker here, he's playing know-it-all, and it's getting a little irritating.
Well, I hear you, and
I reject your reality and replace it with my own. Thank you, Shady Green. This fool is an art snob, plain and simple. I don't know what he is yet. He hasn't even given us one active example. He's an English major who's gone through all the classes of reading, all the classes of writing, his thesis, this, that, and the other. He hasn't given us he hasn't named a single book yet. It's either a good thing or a bad thing, something to teach or something not to teach. He has to have written an essay or two in his day as an English major. I wonder when he's going to get there. I'm going to back up a couple seconds because I did cut him off.
They come up with that we should be teaching older texts instead of newer texts. Well, I hear you, and on one hand, I see your point, and I understand that this model is not perfect.
What?
There certainly could be some things that students miss out on with this model.
Like?
However, the things they would miss out on are extremely minor compared to the benefits of better understanding, enjoying, and relating to the text they're reading.
Relating to the text they're reading. Who gets to decide that again? And why are the students disallowed from doing that on their own time? Or again, take a modern literature class or a 20th century literature class or something. They exist. And if you're saying, oh, there are some that should be taught, okay, either you're setting new standards or you're not. Either you're saying that there needs to be a new paradigm to English class, or you're just making a, I don't know, arrogant suggestion.
I believe many teachers are hesitant to teach newer texts because they're worried about disrupting the English literary canon.
Maybe. Or maybe with the classics, there is a wealth of additional peripheral information to be had and discussions to be constructed about them. History to be learned, language to be mastered, and on and on and on. Because like I said, there has been something lost over the generations in how we communicate with one another. The old books have value.
Well, if you want to talk about the canon for a moment, the current status quo of the canon among non-academics is mostly discussing the canon in the context of hating those books that they read in class.
Says you. You're an English major. You chose to take this course of action in school. Okay. And as an English major, even books that you don't necessarily enjoy, you don't see any value in them whatsoever. In their storytelling, in their structure, in their use of language and prose. You can't find something of worth in those things, even if you personally did not enjoy reading them. You can't see the parallels between, say, Moby Dick and any untold number of modern novels that have the same themes of obsession and revenge. Really?
I mean, wouldn't it be so much better if the English-speaking population was a population that loved reading and in turn became lifelong readers?
Who says the English-speaking population doesn't love reading? What?
I see no reason why we can't have a unified canon of modern texts.
20th century literature. I took the frickin' class, dude. Jesus.
It's pretty well established that many modern authors are going to go down with some of the greatest of all time.
Oh, it's pretty well established. The greatest of all time. You can say that knowing right now. Who? Name one. Give me an example. You've gone through this whole talk. You're more than halfway through this thing. You haven't named a single solitary example.
Such as J.K. Rowling.
Oh! Wow. Okay, so your first example, your first named author, J.K. Rowling. All right. Okay, that's a controversial subject these days, but all right, J.K. Rowling. Yes. I'm sure the Harry Potter books will far outlast her lifetime. I am sure, all things considered. Do you have anybody else? You want to have Harry Potter taught in college courses? Interesting theory. Okay, go on.
James Patterson.
James Patterson. Okay.
Stephen King.
Yeah, I've never, ever been in a class that ever taught or used Stephen King as an example. I didn't take a horror literature class in college where Stephen King showed up, and that didn't happen. dude, you need to get out more. You need to do some more research before you stand up on a stage and talk about things like nobody's ever thought of this before.
And many other modern authors.
Yep. That's it. Wait, J.K. Rowling, Patterson, and Stephen King. That's it. Many other modern. Those are the only ones allowed? What if I don't like Stephen King? What if I think Stephen King sometimes goes a little bit woo, especially back in his old cocaine days? What if I'm not into Harry Potter? What is J.K. Rowling known for other than Harry Potter? What if I don't have any interest in fantasy or what effectively amounts to YA novels? What if I don't care? What if I sit through that class being exposed to Harry Potter and I hate it? Well, what then? Should I shrug it off and just reject it because I didn't like it? Should I protest to the teacher? How dare you teach us this boring crap? Jesus Christ. Thank you, John Miller. I knew he was going to go Harry Potter. Yes, they were so popular. Read better books. And thank you, Pecoraro. There's a new book burning English major. Or that's a new book burning. I mean, at least, figuratively, if not literally. But that's the best you can come up with? How about Cormac McCarthy? What about teaching The Road in class? How about doing that? He's a modern author, relatively speaking. How about that? Or is he too old fogey for you?
Why aren't we teaching them in our English classes?
Because they're not foundationary. That's why. Thank you, Jaeger Pony. Maximum Overdrive should be taught in high school. Yeah, Maximum Overdrive. What else? The Dark Half. Oh man, Dark Half. The Stand. How about? Oh God. What was that one? Dolores Claiborne. Yeah.
I know your first thought is, are you really saying that we should be teaching Harry Potter to middle school and high school students?
Well, that would be my question. Yes. Teaching it.
Yes, I absolutely am. There is absolutely no reason why we can't teach things like theme, characterization, plot development, setting, diction, syntax, or whatever else it is that you may be learning in your English class through a Harry Potter book.
I agree. Look, let me clarify something if I made it opaque before. I don't have a problem with teaching Harry Potter in class, but the suggestion that the classics need to be completely and totally eliminated from sight because they're not relevant to us today. Harry Potter is relevant to us today. Why? Because I need to learn how to do my magic better? I mean, relevancy is, well, relative. But, okay, sure. Using Harry Potter as a teaching device, fine. Okay, that's not so much my objection as to the suggestion that anything written before you were born is somehow now, obsolete entirely.
If possible, why don't we give students a book they're actually going to enjoy along the way?
I would not have enjoyed Harry Potter. You do not know what someone is going to enjoy. You do not have that knowledge. You do not have that control. If you're going to say, we're going to look at Harry Potter in order to analyze theme and structure and syntax and character development, okay, if you're going to use it as an academic tool, I hate to tell you this, and it is a hard lesson to learn for those of us that went through English class, whether or not you like it is irrelevant. It's not necessarily a bad point to start a conversation about the book on. What did you like? What didn't you like? What worked? What didn't work? And so on, etc. But as a teaching tool, like is not your primary concern.
I believe making sure people understand the difference between onomatopoeia and alliteration should not be the primary goal of English teachers, but instead creating a populace of lifelong readers should be the highest priority, far above using awful old texts because they incorporate more technical concepts than a modern text does that's actually palatable for students to read instead of looking at the summary 5 minutes before class starts.
There was a lot packed in there. Okay, so you want to dumb down and sugarcoat the content of English classes in order to get more readers. That somehow the quantity of avid readers is going to make everything better. Ignore the old, awful books because you didn't like them. And reading the summary before class, well, if you're going to cheat like that, you're not going to get much out of your education. And if that's what you did in the course of your English career so far, if you're making a confession here, then you didn't take your education very seriously. If you can't look beyond the entertainment value of your own personal likes and dislikes and see the value educationally about the books that they're putting in front of you, if you can't discern the foundationary aspects of Moby Dick or Shakespeare to modern literature, which you can read on your own time, by the way, I don't know that you've actually been paying attention. But of course, if you're reading summaries of old books before class rather than reading them themselves, that might be part of the reason why. Thank you, Drew W. My best writing teacher was forums. Okay, and there is something to be said for fake it till you make it, do it, etc., learn from experience, practice, practice, practice. But we're not talking about that here. We're talking about this guy saying that we need to reject anything older than his father because it's just not relevant. And he calls himself an English major.
The most important reason I advocate for reading modern authors.
The most important reason? Okay, well, this is it, guys. Here it comes. This is the big kahuna. Tell me.
For older authors.
Yeah.
Is because something older authors can't do.
Yeah.
Is write in the context of the here and now.
I'll tell you what. If I write a 3-sentence story, just right now, it'll have nothing to do with now. And now. And now. A book written in 2002 has nothing to do with the here and now. Harry Potter has nothing to do with the here and now. If that is your standard, you are a moron.
21st century authors are able to account for current events, current societal problems, current technology, and modern English words and speech.
Classic literature can account for informing the reader of the cyclical nature of human experience, regardless of era. Let's just dwell on that for a second here, shall we? The learn history so thou shalt not repeat it, to have some perspective on things, to have a better understanding of how there are some truisms and commonalities from one era to the next, how the stories of Shakespeare are reflected over and over again in so many stories that have come out since. You can relate one to the other. You have some reference in your head for these things. You want to erase the past because only the now matters. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for you.
Do you remember slogging through Shakespeare in high school and not even understanding what's going on in the scene?
Yes, but then I listened to the teacher and I reread the text and I got some reference points. I learned how to read it. What?
Me too. In Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, the character Casca, when he doesn't understand something, says, "But for my own part, it was Greek to me." You know what, Shakespeare? I agree. When I feel like I'm reading your novels, it feels like it's like reading Greek to me.
Wait. Did you just use a citation from Shakespeare? You know, that thing you had to slog through and you hated doing. Did you just use a citation from Shakespeare to refer to something in the here and now? Oh, well, shit.
Many of you may be asking, well, I'm never going to be in English class again, so why should I care? Well, if you're a parent or planning on being one, don't you want your children to have the best education possible?
Yeah, don't you want them to be completely ignorant of history or art or literature? You know, restrict their exposure to things that might inspire them? I don't know. Thank you, Drew W. It wasn't Harry Potter about 1930s Germany. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, I've only seen the movies. I've never read the book, so I don't know if they updated something for the modern day or whatever. But I always thought that Harry Potter was relatively modern, like 80s or 90s or something. And that, I mean, a lot of the history and world building was all the way back to the 30s or something. Thank you, Professor Chaos. His white privilege is showing, LOL. His arrogance is showing, and his ignorance, and his short-sightedness.
Wouldn't you love if your children enjoyed reading?
Why couldn't a child enjoy reading the Odyssey?
If you're a teacher, don't you want these same things? Don't you want your students to enjoy reading and look forward to coming to class?
Why can't they enjoy Treasure Island? Why couldn't they enjoy acting out a Shakespeare play?
Plus, from a simply utilitarian perspective, wouldn't this cut down on cheating?
What?
I mean, there's a SparkNotes or Schmoot page for pretty much every traditional text taught in English class, and I feel like I've read them all at this point.
So you're confessing to have cheated your way through your English degree. Wow, you learn something new every day. Well, here's the thing. I guess that would be incumbent upon the teacher to set a lesson plan and questions and such that try to defy the ability to cheat through it, like apparently you have.
Do you know how many papers I've written that I haven't read the book for?
I don't know. How illegitimate is your current English degree?
Way too many to count.
You know, I honestly don't know. I could be wrong, because God knows I've watched a lot of these now. I don't know if I've ever seen a TEDx speaker so cleanly and joyfully invalidate everything they have to say on a subject with that amount of efficiency. I really don't know. Because obviously the next follow-up question is, were any of those books you didn't read but wrote on the classics by any chance? Oh, boy.
And lastly, if you're someone like me,
a cheater?
who had an awful time in their high school English class.
And yet still pursued an English degree in college because, I don't know, it was easy to cheat.
Hated the books that they were reading. Wouldn't you like to know what a good and modern, relevant book is like?
Well, I would, but, you know, why read it when I can just get the summary off of Amazon?
I mean, Frederick Bachman does an excellent job discussing current societal issues while also having interesting stories on the surface.
Is that something you learned from reading the book or looking at the cliff notes?
Bernice McFadden's releasing great pieces all the time.
Never heard of her. Pieces like what? Name one.
Fareed Zakaria's A Post-American World does an excellent job dissecting America's current and future role in the world.
Fareed Zakaria. Okay.
Terrence Hayes may be the best poet of all time.
That is a matter of opinion. And you don't have the years on you yet to make that declaration, in my opinion.
And he's written 6 collections that have been published within the last 20 years.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh. Okay. So how does he compare to Walt Whitman? Yeah, you know, how does he compare? How does he compare to Sylvia Plath? Would you like to compare and contrast? What tells you that he is the greatest poet of all time? How do you arrive at that conclusion if you have not read the classics?
I promise you, there's a multitude of excellent modern works out there.
Oh, I agree. There are probably a lot of excellent modern works out there. Excellent modern works do not invalidate the value of the classics.
Please, don't let your bad childhood English classes stop you from enjoying all the current library of modern, excellent works we have.
Who said that they do?
When you get a chance, please go to your bookstore, go to a library, and pick up a good, modern, entertaining, relevant text in your life.
How could I know that until after I've read it? Oh, did I go get the cheat sheet off the internet first, or listen to somebody on Goodreads, the Facebook of books?
And learn to fall in love with reading. Thank you.
Okay, well, train wreck, absolute poppycock nonsense throughout this entire thing, but we'll get to that momentarily. Let's go to the bingo card and see where we are at. I got to shrink this down a little bit for the sake of yeah, that'll work. Okay, let's take a look at the bingo card real quick. Where are we at? Anecdote that probably never happened. He never gave us an anecdote. He talked in generalities about bad experiences in English class, but he never told us a story that I recall. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No. This guy has no sense of humility at all. Systemic institutional? No, at least not outright. Weightless example? Every author, every book he gave is a weightless example because he was not either willing or able to compare or contrast it to prove his point. They meant nothing. The authors he listed meant nothing. Word salad. Yeah, I'm circling word salad because he went, especially in the last couple minutes there, he just meandered all over the place. And I didn't even understand what the point of his talk was. You wanted to encourage people to read more, but you were, trying to invalidate the classics. What was your point? I honestly have a hard time. Well, given the fact that he admitted to us that he cheated his way through his major, I actually don't have a hard time imagining why this was such a bad presentation. Leaves out vital context. Yeah, again, no comparison, contrasts, no examples. Give me an example of a bad piece of literature. Tell me why it is bad. Why it is irrelevant. Yeah, collectivize his own demographic. I guess students in English classes, all of us, gone through these things. Yeah, I'm going to circle that one. White supremacy, no. Privilege, not explicitly, but I might take arguments. Equity, no. Plays victim, yeah. Poor him. He had to go through the awful books in English class, and oh god, it was so tough because I had to then I had to go read all the abstracts and write a paper without reading the book. Thank you, John Migda. 4-day weekend paid. 4-day weekend paid. Oh, do you have that this week? Oh, is it because Easter weekend? Is that what it is? I don't know. I need context, John Migda. We're all talking about context here. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Oh, sorry, I got to update the bingo card as I go. Let me go back to the bingo card. Come back. Buzzword, buzz phrase. No. Wage gap, no. Patriarchy, no. I never mentioned gender, not feminism either. Diversity and inclusion, no. Surprisingly enough, as was mentioned earlier, nothing sort of woke social justice-y came up in this. So, marginalization, nope. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason, no. Again, he never brought up, race or gender or anything really. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. No. I mean, you could say he has it, but he never brought it up in the talk. Okay, so as far as I can tell, that's all I've got. I will now, of course, take arguments for squares yet to be circled. I'm sure there are a few. I'll give you a second there. Let's see. What else is going on? Not much, I guess. Let's see. 69 otters. Reading is valuable is somewhat difficult to follow, so Harry Potter is a good compromise. Yeah. Let's find the lowest common denominator of literature. And I can't say, hide nor hair of J.K. Rowling's talent because I haven't read a single one of her books. Everything that I have heard from people that I trust, and certainly the amount of effect it has had on society and so on, if nothing else, J.K. Rowling will go to heaven because she inspired kids to read. If nothing else, and so I credit where credit is due. I haven't read every good book in the world, but I can, admit that someone has the ability and the talent to do it. However, to then say that J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter should supplant the Odyssey or Beowulf or Shakespeare, come on. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. He would actually have a point if he was talking about books to get young kids into reading. Getting boys to read more is tough. Maybe try manga. You see, now that would have been a much more clear and concise argument, is that you have to have sort of like maybe the wedge theory of literature, right? And in a way, we already have that, right? You start out with, easy readers for kids. How do kids read in the first place? Well, they read, the terrible and toxic Dr. Seuss, and eventually graduate into things like Huckleberry Finn. Oh, wait, no, that's all racist. Then they graduate onto, I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know what's allowed. I guess Harry Potter. Sure. Okay. Gay Rascal and So Scribe Light buried Spencer, breaker of English literary canon, literary reference. Now, here's the question. Do I get that literary reference? Part of me wants to say Shakespeare. Part of me does. Let's see. Raziel, I can attest to that. Manga is actually what got me into reading in the first. Hey, and again, theories on getting people to read more is fine. But if you're going to use books as a teaching tool, you don't have to use the classics. I'm not saying that should be required. But I certainly don't believe that they should be eliminated from consideration, like our speaker put up at the top of this. He contradicted himself later on, which means he doesn't really have an argument. But, he's a cheater. So, and I'm not saying that because I'm trying to, libel the guy. He told us on the stage that he couldn't count how many times he cheated on book assignments. So, good Lord. Let's see. Professor Chaos, he should be stripped of his English degree, LOL. Well, anyone, if he's still in school, his teachers should take a much, much harder look at what he turns in with that admission. And that was bizarre. Entertaining, but bizarre. Annalyn, I can only read for work, not pleasure. I will admit that my frequency reading books has definitely dropped off over the last couple of years. I used to read books a lot. I blame mostly like YouTube and other media that I get my information from, and work, and now other things that I do. It doesn't feel like I have the time to just sit down and read a book. And I think my attention span has also been damaged quite severely by modern technology. So that's my excuse. But I used to read a lot. I got books all over this apartment. Yeah, anyway, that's completely different. I don't see any arguments for squares to be circled. Jeanette, did he say anything about not reading the white authors yet? No. He never, surprisingly enough, he didn't mention anything about race or gender or make assessments of people on the basis of anything like that. He talked about time, the era in which they were written, the relevancy to the modern day and things like that. He rejected anything that went further back than his own birthday as somehow this doesn't need to be taught in school. This isn't relevant. This has nothing to offer, and on and on and on. So, I mean, sidewise, credit where credit is due. He didn't bring up irrelevant facts about the authors themselves in rejecting them. Kind of. Let's see. X4390247. We're all his stupidity. The boxes have to wait. Annalyn, he listed books. Yes, I did circle a list, so we got that down. And he listed authors as well at a certain point, so we got that as well. Yeah, I mean, again, I'll take a minute or two if you guys have any arguments for squares, but I think just overall, oh man, I don't know. I just had a thought. Given just how utterly unproven and redonkulous this entire argument was. And, you know, especially with that whole period of him telling us how much he cheated his way through his degree or any other class that might have been relevant. I don't know, guys. Should I? I mean, I'm kind of feeling it.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
Yeah, yeah, not necessarily the most like over the top WTF ever, but on a personal note, given my personal experience with the subject matter, and just listening to that guy like completely dunk himself and show his ignorance, show his lack of self-awareness for what he says he is pursuing, and then how seriously he actually took it by telling us how often he cheated. If nothing else, that deserves a WTF. Gay Rasco says, literary reference was the Iliad. You know, I never read the Iliad. I took a Greek mythology class in college, but we never covered the Iliad. I did see, no, wait, that was, yeah, I never did. Yeah, unfortunately, never did. I mean, I should take it back. Bits and pieces of the Odyssey. Yeah, but not the Iliad. Or not the fullness of it. I'm trying to remember. It's been so long. But I don't discount its value just because it's old or something. Let's see. Jeanette, this dude must have been told the only way he'll be taken seriously is if he has a damn degree, which isn't that great. Yeah, trust me. And I will say this to anybody out there that is in a position to think about this. A degree doesn't say much. A degree doesn't say much except that you can set a goal and achieve it. And of course, the lowest of the low degrees, aside from maybe communications degree, and I hope my sister isn't listening, is an English degree. As far as employment and things like that, it might get your foot in the door, but unless you're going to leverage it into a teaching career or something else, it's kind of more of a nice to have than a primary thing. Who you are and what you do after the fact, how you prove what you've learned has become relevant and useful to you is, your activities thereafter. But short of something like a science degree, an engineering degree, something that's far more technical, that has a higher watermark of rigor for achieving, yeah, these soft sciences, it doesn't say much. That's why whenever somebody comes up and says, I'm a doctor, I always go, doctor of what? PhD. A PhD in what? And then let me hear you talk about your chosen subject, and I'll see if it makes any sense to me. That's kind of what TEDx is for me. Take people who stand up on a stage and declare themselves in some way, shape, or form to be an expert in their field or knowledgeable about it, and just put it to the test of my own senses, I suppose, or reason or otherwise. But that's enough about me. Oh, I do need to circle the whole card because that was a WTF Hall of Fame entrant. Again, not the most like screaming out loud, what the hell are you talking about, WTF moment, but all the same, one worthy of note, especially for, I can't count how many papers I've cheated on in my English degree. Boy, oh boy. I wish our speaker the best going forward, as really, when you cheat in school, you're only cheating yourself. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate all of you coming along with me on this journey. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you so much to the moderators for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone is so well behaved, there's little to do. Everyone who donated, thank you. Thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the both of us tonight on my channel, this channel, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for the Lords of the Night, where we will talk about the news of the day, news stories you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Stay safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.